Blink-182 have returned with One More Time Part 2, a deluxe edition pretty much. What were your thoughts on the album, Tim?
I was a little bit cautious going into it because we'd had the full version released last year, so this was like a little bit of an add-on. To me, it kind of felt like it could have been an extended EP of sorts. It felt like it had the feeling of maybe Neighborhood/Dogs Eating Dogs, like a carry-on from that.
I thought this actually felt like and sounded more like the California era of Blink, more indie vibes, more chill throughout. A lot of this wasn't even particularly pop punk for me, but shall we jump in to the first track with No Fun? The complete opposite. I would say the intro to this one sounded like an Angels and Airwaves track.
To me, it gave me Boxcar Racer vibes. It definitely gave me an older kind of Blink sound. It didn't really feel like Blink. It felt like an offshoot of Blink. This was one of the singles that they released, and I remember hearing this along with All in My Head. And these didn't really set me right for what was going to be released later down the line.
I completely agree. It worried me. I was like, oh, what's going to happen? And I think that could this be Blink steering away from pop punk a little bit? Because when you're releasing this as a single, it wasn't particularly punky, was it?
No, they kind of felt like, it does feel like they're going down the routes of Plus 44, Boxcar, Angels and Airwaves, like we were saying, Neighborhoods and that kind of vibe where it's more rocky, it feels a little bit less pop punky. But this song in particular, the chorus was very lackluster. I don't think there was much to the song at all.
And to be honest, when we move on to All in My Head, I'd say exactly the same thing. I thought this was incredibly repetitive. It wasn't a particularly unique song in any way. It honestly really didn't do anything for me.
This one makes me feel like if all of the members of Blink were in Plus 44, this is the kind of song that we'd end up getting, which is an interesting take to have. But some of the lyrics in the track as well were a little bit something about cum stains on the couch, which just hits weird hearing them say it at their age. Again, I'm not trying to be ageist or anything like that, but I don't really think they had that much stuff in that realm back in the day. So coming out with it now, I don't know.
This one did take the tempo back up a little bit. It was a bit more high energy in the track, but it's really not for me. And unfortunately, we can't go back to old Blink, but we are back on part 2. What did you think of Can't Go Back?
This gave me, again, these all feel like throwbacks to songs that I've heard before. It sounds like something that they've released in the past, or they were going to release in the past, had to bin it, and then they said, you know what, bring it back, we'll throw it on as a B-sides for this new album, and we'll just see how it goes.
Yeah, it just feels like Blink are releasing these songs for no particular reason. They don't add anything for me.
The one thing I will say about this track is that the guitar effects and the drum beat are pretty sick, so I'll give him kudos there.
Travis is always just smashing it though, isn't he? Like, you can listen to any track and Travis, if he's actually got a proper drum beat in there, is just going ham. And then we move on to Every Other Weekend. This is an indie track. This is not pop punk.
Well, when the intro kicked in, it had me a little bit cautious. It made me feel a little bit like, what's going to happen here? But when it got to the verse where it actually fully became a full song, I actually quite liked it.
No, I didn't mind it, but I would definitely say that it is 1,000,000% nowhere near a Blink-182 pop punk song.
Do you not think?
Nah.
I felt like out of all the new songs, this was one of the ones that felt like it could have been a classic Blink track. There was a lot of harmonies going on. There was a great chorus, and there was all round. I think it was a good song. I do think it was a good song.
I think out of the newer ones, it was one of my favourites. But if you were to put this in all-time Blink songs, it wouldn't even be top 50.
Really?
Do you think?
Top 50?
Nah. Blink have 50 better songs than that. You can take practically any song off the first.
Yeah, I suppose so, yeah.
So it's okay, but this is what I'm saying. Realise that we're trying to draw the bar too low here. Like, we're trying to defend it because we love them. But in reality, if it's not even in your favourite artist's top 50 tracks, is it that good? Like, would you recommend this to someone else and say, oh, you should really listen to this new Blink track? No.
I don't think I'd recommend any of the songs off One More Time. As somebody getting into Blink, One More Time would be like oh, and if you've got time at some point, you should probably listen to that, but listen to these 12 other projects.
No,
first.
I think I would send a few from the original One More Time. I think that had a couple bangers on, but not from this part 2 section. But let's not get too distracted. We move on to Everyone Everywhere. I thought this brought it back to pop punk.
Yeah, I'd somewhat agree, but it felt a little bit more like it was in the vibe of a metal track, and I don't know if you'll agree with that, but at the bridge, it kind of had a weird breakdown, and they were trying something different, and I didn't hate what they were trying, but it just didn't seem right.
Well, I thought there was more of an electronic type vibe to it. It kind of reminded me of, do you know, like early Kasabian when they were trying to skew electronic music a little bit into rock music? This is the vibe I got from this song, and I didn't like it.
The bridge feels entirely different to the rest of the song. The track itself feels very disjointed. It felt like they've taken maybe 2 or even 3 songs that they've had in the works and said, those will work as a track together, right? Let's just see if this works. And unfortunately, it didn't really pay off.
This is not painting a good picture, is it? We're just going track after track, slamming them.
Oh, it's bad.
And then If You Never Left. I wish they left this on the hard drive. This is another indie ballad from Blink-182, and I'll hear nothing else.
So this is chiller, and from what I've seen online, a lot of people are saying that this is their favourite track off this new release, which I can't really understand that much because I thought it was one of the blandest tracks that Blink might have ever released.
I've got it's my favourite track, best of the bunch.
Really?
I think that this is the best of the extra songs they've added on by a country mile. I really enjoyed it, but then it also, as I say, it's an indie ballad. It skews towards my taste in music more than anything else on the album. So I can find an appreciation for it in a different sense outside of the Blink pop punk realm. So yeah, I really, really like this.
This was a song when listening through these that when I was trying to make notes for each track, this one I really struggled to make any notes on. It's the only one where I've just got one sentence. Like I couldn't, listening to it, I thought, meh.
I loved it. No issues with it at all. We move on to the second to last track, One Night Stand. I thought this was super cringy.
Yeah, Mark's vocals sound really weird. I don't know what's going on with this track. They sound very odd. And also, the lyrics are fucking god-awful. It's like spiritual lyrical in like some weird pop-punk universe. I don't get it.
The Marks Do I Run, where he's questioning if he runs away from the one night stand or this girl that he's seen or whatever. I really didn't like that. It just felt like something an 18-year-old would say, not a 55-year-old Mark Hoppus.
The chorus feels like it's going to go somewhere as well. When the chorus kicks in for the first 2 or 3 beats, you're like, oh, and then it just peters out and it flatlines. Blink, and nothing happens.
Blink are really bringing back edging.
Blink are being bleak.
Oh,
that's
God.
What's happening there.
Last track, Take Me In. Final track, and I'm thinking, right, they've got to pull it out the bag here, and they really didn't.
Yeah, I liked what they were going for. I got the idea of the vibe that they were trying to pass off, but I don't think they executed it very well. It just felt... every song on this felt rushed is the word I'd used, or felt like an unfinished project that should have stayed where it was, unfinished.
I said it when One More Time came out originally, that it felt bloated as an album. And I think adding extra songs onto it has actually made it a worse listening experience. I couldn't listen to this from top to bottom. 27 tracks is absolutely ridiculous.
One thing I'll give them for Take Me In is that I really liked the drum beat over the top of the slow guitars, because when the chorus kicks in, Travis is going sicko mode on the drums, really fast double time beat. But in the background, it's the slow kind of melodic guitars and vocals. And I think those contrasting against each other made for an interesting listening experience. But that is the only upside I can find for this track.
Yeah, but that track is certainly not enough to save the album. And I don't think there's anything that can, to be honest. I'm one of the biggest Blink fans in the world, but this was mediocre at best.
From top to bottom on One More Time with this new edition, there's so many tracks in there that I would class as duds that really ruin the tempo of the album as a whole. That, like you were saying, it kind of makes it a little bit unlistenable from top to bottom. What I would have to do is I would have to take out maybe 10 to 12 of the songs that we've had from this entire album, make them their own playlist, change the track listing a little bit, and then I think it would become, you know, a somewhat decent project.
I think Blink-182 fans can claim that they love One More Time, and it is great that the band are back together, but in reality you don't. You only love a couple of the singles, and if you took the 10 best songs from One More Time and put them on an album, it'd be a good album, maybe even a great album. But when it's this long, 27 tracks with this many filler tracks, random kind of what feels like a test that they've done in the studio that they never completed, and they've gone, oh, that sounds a bit different, let's put it out. You've got like Blink Wave, Childhood, half the tracks on this part 2 are indie tracks. It just really doesn't work for me.
A lot of the production throughout the album is very questionable as well, and some of the effects that they put onto the vocals throughout it makes it sound really weird. Like we were saying before with Mark, it's not just just that one track. There's a lot of tracks on One More Time where the vocals are maybe louder than they should be, or you don't hear the rest of the instruments, and it feels a bit, I don't know, it feels rushed is the word, but they've had such a long time to make it that you question, what were they thinking?
Yeah, I've no idea. Have you got any final notes of hate to spew before we give One More Time Part 2 a rating?
I would say that none of the songs on One More Time Part 2 are worse than the songs on One More Time. I think it's definitely an addition that matches the vibe of the initial album. That's the upside that I'll give it.
I completely disagree with that. I think One More Time in itself, the original album, What You Know, is better than any of these new songs. I think Edging is better than any of these new songs.
What I'm saying is none of these songs are worse than the worst songs off of One More Time.
Oh, maybe,
all these additions just feel like extra duds added into the mix that were already there.
There's no extra bangers.
That's it, yeah.
I agree with that. And what would you rate One More Time Part 2? Let's just imagine, rate the extra tracks. Imagine they're just an EP. What would you rate it out of 10?
So this is the thing. If I was going to rate them as an EP and they were going to change it to something that would be more akin to Dogs Eating Dogs, it'd probably get a higher rating.
Why? It's still crap.
Because it would be its own project. It wouldn't be them trying to add on to a Blink album that had already come out.
Yeah, but you're comparing it to a project that you liked. You just said that all of these songs are duds, so why would you give it a higher rating still if it was on its own EP?
Because it would be its own separate thing. It'd be they were well aware that this was very different. Like they did with Dogs Eating Dogs. It was so different to Blink's discography before that it worked as its own standalone thing because it wasn't tainting any other album.
Yeah, but Dogs Eating Dogs was actually good.
No, yes. Yeah, okay. Right, okay. You're just nullifying the point.
I am. It doesn't make sense.
It does make sense.
Makes zero sense.
It fucking does.
Give it a rating. Stop beating around the bush.
Don't make me. You give a rating first. Come on.
For the extra tracks.
For the extra tracks.
If they're on their own EP, I'd give it a 2 out of 10.
A 2 out of 10?
There's only one track.
Oh!
There's only one track that I actually really like, and I'm a huge Blink fan. But there's only one track on this that I went, "Ooh, this is good." The rest I was just like.
So I was umming and ahhing between a 4 and a 5, and I think I'm gonna go in the middle. 4.5 is where I'm gonna go for it.
You're giving these tracks a 4.5 out of 10.
Correct.
How many of them did you put on your playlist?
None.
There you go. This makes you don't even like any of them.
Well, but it's Blink-182, so I'm going to be naturally biased. And I think just having Mark, Tom, and Travis on a track together is enough to get the rankings up a little bit.
Bro is actually gaslighting himself live on camera. I respect it. Let's quickly give, taking these tracks into account, One More Time as a whole, as a deluxe edition, a rating. You go first for this one.
5.
I would also say 5. I think there's enough good tracks on the original album that pull it up a bit, but this actually, I would have probably said 6 before.
In my opinion, the album on its own wasn't that amazing, and these tracks don't add much to it, but they also don't take much from it, so I would have been in the ballpark of 5 or 6 anyway. This hasn't really changed my opinion on the album as a whole.
Well, I'd agree. I didn't really like it, but I think that you've given this extra project a bit more love than it deserves. But if you got this far, remember to like and subscribe. We post a lot of content around Blink, pop punk, rock music, all types of music. So hit those buttons.
Thank you very much.